Good morning and welcome to the podcast. It's a Monday morning in mid-February, about 7 degrees, a grey overcast sky, but no wind. It's quite pleasant. I'm on a walk today that I've done many times. I've brought both my dogs with me. I had planned to go further afield, but last few weeks have been quite busy, so I decided to stay local. If you haven't heard the podcast before, it's basically me going for a walk and talking about the day, usually about the route and places of interest that I come across. Today will be a little bit different. I've described this walk several times in previous podcasts, so I thought I'd actually talk about an aspect of walking with dogs. The podcast is also somewhere for me to explore the benefits of walking, those both physical and mental, which is why when I set out I thought, why not do something a little different. And I'm guessing if you have got dogs you will understand what I'm talking about, and if you haven't got dogs, maybe gives you an insight into why people seem to be so obsessed with their four-legged friends. Come on, you two. The walk today starts from a pub called the Crooked Billet. It's at the side of the road that goes from Garforth to Tadcaster. I walk along the side of the river that flows from Leeds to its tributary with the River Wharf near Tadcaster, towards the village of Aberford, through a wood and back. It's a couple of hours, a walk I've done dozens and dozens of times, with at least two pairings of dogs. I've always had two. Come on, you two. It's a lovely day. There are fields that have been left from last year, but also fields full of crops that are just starting to come through. I used to think this was a dead part of winter before spring, but slowly everything is changing. There are catkins on the hazel and willow trees, and the birds on a still day like today seem a lot more active than they have been for the past few months. Not far from here is the A1 motorway that goes from Edinburgh to London, and I'm actually walking towards it now, and the drone from the traffic is pretty incessant. The first dog I had when I was 30 was a Labrador that I bought from a breeder's. A lovely dog, lived till he was nearly 17. Not long after I got him, I took a stray that somebody found in a box. I never managed to train her properly. I was lacking in knowledge in those days. The only advice I could give to anybody is seek advice, people who know. I didn't with both of those two dogs, and they were lovely dogs and had a lot of lovely walks with both of them. But your life with dogs could be so much easier if you got them trained properly. Anyhow, since then to here, 32 years has elapsed, and 11 dogs in various pairings and various sexes and various sizes and various shapes. The two I have at the moment are both street dogs from Romania, which is something I hadn't realised was a problem till I went looking for a dog last year to replace one that had died, and found a shelter that was packed with dogs that had been brought over from Romania, where they are treated quite badly, I think, and kept in poor conditions. But these two are lovely. The one from last year is looks like a little German Shepherd, but with tiny legs and a much smaller body than the German Shepherd. And then when my much loved Labrador died, come on you two, this year we went back, not intending to get another Romanian dog, but we did, and He's looks like a Labrador, big, strong and black, with white patches on his feet and chest. I'm just walking up out of the valley, gently sloping and wooded at this side, and I'll go soon into a wood that I think is called Hayton Wood. Come out the other side, I'll be able to see Aberford and the motorway, and then I'll turn around and go back. It took me about half an hour or so to get here. I've met a few people today as it's the school holidays here, so there are families out walking their dogs and their children. There's a little spot at the top of this hill overlooking the shallow valley. A wind farm in the distance at Hookmore, and I usually like to sit and have a coffee here for a few minutes. Somebody's dog's run off. I've just sat down to have my coffee, and the group of people with children and dogs that were behind me are all screaming frantically. As their dogs took off about half a mile downstream, but now it's heading back. I think there's far too much excitement in the river and in the trees for it, and now the other one's going. So what's walking with dogs all about? It's something I was thinking about this morning, which is why I decided to do this podcast. It's about what these people are doing, I think, and I did the same, out with children, with dogs, frantic, frenetic. It's gone back. Having fun in the open air, away from screens, away from the house. It's also about, I guess, what I do, sitting on a hill with 2 8 years plus dogs, chilling, enjoying the late winter as much as you can enjoy late winter. The turbines at Hookmore are turning fairly quickly, yet here there's just the gentlest of breezes. My having dogs coincided with probably the age of these people, and I've had 2 dogs ever since. Maybe not for everybody, but for me they've been some of the most challenging times of my life, with family and work, and the one constant that's always been there has been having 2 dogs. Not speaking, not judging, there for you when you come home, there for you when you sat reading a book, there for you when you want to go out, whatever the weather, whatever the time. Generally would go as far as I wanted or as short as I wanted, and they seemed happy. And it's that bond really that I've never really thought about till today, just taking it for granted. I do know that I find it hard to be without dogs now. I find it hard to be without 2 whenever one has died. It hasn't been very long before we've got another one. Kinder, come here. One of my dogs I still keep on one of these dogs I still keep on a long lead. From what I can gather, he lived on the streets from being born to being captured and taken to what they call kill shelters in Romania, where dogs don't actually stay very long. He was rescued from there and then eventually brought by a charity to England. But I think what you get is a dog that's looked after itself for 7 years. He's got scars on his legs and scars on his head, scars on his ears, but he seems to have settled to life in a house and doesn't ask much except a warm bed and regular food. I do though keep him on a lead at the moment because the shelter I got him from recommended that and said he may always be an escape artist. So I've done it slowly with the other dog, and only recently I've started letting her off the lead for longer periods. Today being the longest she's ever been off the lead. So I am a little on edge every time her ears go up. She doesn't like bangs, so the countryside, although it does seem the best place to let her off, does have the machines that make bangs to scare pigeons away from crops, and they do have people shooting. But so far so good, she seems to stick by me or the other dog. I suppose that's the main difference between a dog you get as a puppy and a dog you get that's 3, 5, 8 years old. You know what one has been through, you know what one has been exposed to. The other one, you've absolutely no idea. So you have to overthink situations. But I'm hoping in time the other dog can be let off the lead as well. Just walking along the side of an ancient earthwork that runs through the woods towards Aberford. It's called Becker Banks. It's been around maybe 3,000 to 5,000 years, and it's very clear over near Aberford and here. I'm just approaching a field that I have to cross, and it's disappeared completely in that. It's been ploughed under many years ago. But I can see Aberford now in the distance and hear the motorway much clearer. So we'll cross this field and turn left along the track, back down into the valley, and then head back to the start point. Walking with dogs, just part and parcel of having dogs. A big part of my life. I listened to a radio programme last night and someone was reading from a book. I missed which book it was. But it was reading from the perspective of a dog, and it was saying how dogs think, and they're always talking even though they can't talk. And I think it's true, they enjoy a walk as much as I do, particularly these two. They sniff, they listen, I guess they're feeling things as well. They listen to me. If I sit and just look at the view, they sit and look at the view. And as many dog owners will tell you, if I'm sad, they know I'm sad. And if I'm happy, they know I'm happy. People can fill that space in our lives, but not always. Whereas dogs can. So I'm not really sure what the nature of walking with dogs is. Kinder, come here. 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 Come on. It's about being out when you don't necessarily want to be out, in weather you don't necessarily want to be in. But one thing's for sure, it's usually with creatures that you definitely want to be with. And if you have one dog that you trust, or two dogs that you trust and that you have for a long time, walking is just a sheer pleasure with them. They do their own thing, they swim, they run, they make you smile. If it's as these two are new dogs or puppies, you having to not so much train them but become a cohesive unit where they understand what you expect, and to some extent you have to understand what they expect. These two strike me as very independent. I can see how they would have survived on their own. They're always ahead, always smelling, always looking, always checking. I thought by the end of walking and talking today, Dory, come here. I may have some conclusion as to walking with dogs, but I haven't. Other than it's fun and surprising and nice to be with friends. The little dog that I have, the one that I've only just let off the lead really for the first time on a long walk, has just gone crazy in a field. I was worried that she was running away. It's a field on a hill going down to the river, and she just went crazy, running, skipping, maybe 100 yards away from us, called her, and she came bouncing back with, I think, the biggest doggy smile on her face. It's all about interpreting their behaviour, and I'm still rubbish at it after all these years. But think about the poor dogs. They have to try and interpret our behaviour, which cannot be easy. "11 dogs, 32 years. I won't tell you their entire stories today. Some have been sad, incredibly heartbreaking. Others have been a bit wild. But generally, it's been a fantastic journey. And if I have a conclusion at all, it's that I can't imagine being without dogs, really. So while ever I'm physically capable..." Come on. Come on. In here. Come on. While ever I'm physically capable, it's something I probably want to keep doing. Despite the stopping and starting and sniffing and not getting anywhere fast. The Labrador and the little mongrel that were the first two, he lived for nearly 17 years, she lived for 11, then went to the Dogs Trust and got a dog, similar looking to the one that died, companion for the Labrador. Bonnie she was called. Another dog, lived almost 15 years, and then after that decided to go full on with rescue dogs. And the stories are so sad, but it's so much fun seeing moments like this morning. That little dog, she lived on the streets for all those years, has obviously been treated badly by people, scared of her own shadow sometimes, but having such fun. And the little miracles when you teach a dog that can't do anything. The latest dog could not do a thing when we got him. We were told he couldn't. We've had dogs that we've been told won't come in the house, won't let you put a lead on, can't sit, can't do this, can't do that, and yet the months on they can, and it's fabulous to see. So then after Bonnie, we had a couple of old dogs. One dog that we got that was 14, sadly died within about 9 months. Was as upsetting as if I'd had him 14 years. Another dog we got at 14 lived for 3 years, must have been 16 or 17, a cross lurcher golden retriever. Fantastic dog he was. And the Labrador that died last year, got when she was 5, and sadly she got cancer and died just in October, November, just gone. And then while we had her, we took a blind puppy. It was a terribly sad story, and she couldn't do anything, she had no manners, she couldn't see, she was terrified, and it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life, having her. And tragically she developed epilepsy and died. Which brings me to now, we've got the little dog to replace her last year, and the big dog to replace the Labrador this year. As I get older, it does get harder when they get ill, but I think it's the pleasure for me outweighs the sadness. They keep me on my toes, they keep me fit, and they listen to all my problems and worries and woes. And by the time I've spent 2 or 3 hours in their company, I feel so much better. Just heading back now along the river. A tangle of broken down willow trees line its banks, lichen on the branches, fungus on the dead and decaying trees. The river quite low, but in times of heavy rain it bursts its banks and there's a small floodplain, maybe 30-40 metres wide, that does go underwater. A lovely old tree on the opposite bank, looks as if it's dying, but it's got all kinds of hollows and nooks for birds to nest in. When the river's like this, it's actually quite shallow, 6 inches, maybe 12 in places. And there is a place a bit further up where we can get through the trees to the water's edge. And it's a question I really have, because not all dogs like water. Some of them you can't get out of it. So I'm going to see how they behave near water. And just to report, the little dog that I'm letting off the lead for the whole of the walk has a habit to take herself off quite a long way in front of me. But so far, each of 3 occasions I've called her, she's come charging back. We've headed into the undergrowth by the water's edge. It's a little bit deeper than I thought, actually. It's maybe about a good foot to 18 inches, and neither of them have shown any inclination to go swimming, but both have gone down to the water's edge and had a drink. It's lovely down here. The river meanders a lot, and there's a thick cover of willow, so most of the walk you can't actually see the water, but it is another world down here. I think I said before, the Environment Agency I read had done a lot of work on this river and put in little weirs to speed the water flow up to help salmon to return, which in turn I think has helped otters return. And here we are, no more than 8 or 9 miles from the centre of Leeds. 2 water babies I don't think I do have. I'm heading back to the car now, and it's been a lovely walk. A little bit more stressful in some ways when you have dogs, because you have responsibilities for them and for yourself and for others. You don't want them to run off, you don't want them to hurt themselves, hurt anybody else. So it is a little bit more stressful, but I've smiled quite often today at these 2, and I'm sure they've smiled at me, huffing and puffing. The responsibility of owning dogs is massive. Don't get one if you're not prepared for everything that goes with it, because they are like having 2 toddlers or 1 toddler that never ages. And if you're not prepared to put the hours in every day with your dog, please don't get one. But if you want unfailing loyalty, friendship, fun, not to be judged, not to be mocked, not to be bad-mouthed, and you like being out, then get a dog. I'm almost back at my start point now, so I think I'll call it a day. It's been a lovely walk, a little different. If you have enjoyed the podcast, do tell your friends about it, share it on your social media. But until the next time, when hopefully I can go a little bit further afield, I'll say cheerio.